You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Timeboxing is one of the most powerful disciplines in agile delivery because it transforms infinite ambition into constrained focus. A time box is a fixed window in which the team commits to delivering the highest possible value that can be achieved within the limit. The constraint is deliberate. It forces prioritization, sharpens trade-offs, and makes outcome thinking essential. Without limits, scope tends to expand endlessly, diluting energy and delaying results. With time boxes, every cycle becomes an opportunity to deliver verifiable benefit, no matter how small. The orientation is not about arbitrary deadlines, but about making each slice of time a vehicle for learning and progress. Imagine a painter limited to a small canvas each day. Rather than sketching vague outlines forever, they must produce something complete and meaningful within the frame. Time boxes create that same urgency and focus, converting constraints into creativity and discipline. Value must be defined broadly enough to capture its true dimensions. Too often, teams equate value solely with feature count, measuring productivity by how much functionality is shipped. A healthier view acknowledges customer outcomes, business impact, and risk reduction as legitimate forms of value. For example, improving system security may not add visible features, but protects trust and reduces long-term liability. Similarly, reducing cycle time improves flow, enabling future value delivery at a faster pace. Teams that anchor value only in output miss these vital contributions. By clarifying value as a blend of outcomes, impact, and risk mitigation, teams ensure their choices within time boxes align with what truly matters. This prevents the narrow lens of counting features, and instead recognizes that sustainable value takes many forms, some of them invisible, until stress tests reveal their worth. The discipline of outcome over output requires teams to tie work selection to measurable benefits. Instead of asking, "What can we finish in this time box?" the better question is, "What outcome can we achieve or test in this time box?" This orientation shifts the focus from activity to impact. For example, rather than building 3 new reports, the outcome goal might be enable customers to make faster decisions by reducing manual data collection. The measure becomes reduced user effort, not report count. Outcome thinking ensures scope is aligned with the effect it creates, not just the artifacts produced. When time is constrained, activity that does not translate into outcomes becomes waste. By tying scope directly to benefits, teams deliver slices that matter, reinforcing stakeholder confidence and producing evidence that guides the next cycle. Cost of delay provides a lens for sequencing work inside a time box. Not all value is equal in urgency. Some items lose relevance quickly if delayed, while others retain value longer. By quantifying the impact of waiting, teams can prioritize the most time-sensitive items. For example, releasing a tax compliance update before a legal deadline avoids penalties, while delaying a minor aesthetic improvement may have little impact. Cost of delay frames prioritization not just in terms of eventual benefit but also in terms of time sensitivity. This helps stakeholders and teams make rational trade-offs rather than succumbing to the loudest request. By surfacing how waiting changes value, cost of delay ensures the most critical work is done first, preserving outcomes under the constraint of fixed time boxes. Weighted shortest job first, or WSJF, provides a more structured method of prioritization by balancing cost of delay against job size. The principle is straightforward. Items with high cost of delay and small size should be prioritized because they deliver the most benefit quickly. For example, a small security patch with high-risk exposure ranks higher than a large, low-urgency feature. WSJF provides defensible ordering when capacity is limited and demand exceeds supply, which is almost always. By using ratios instead of raw intuition, teams avoid political or emotional prioritization. This method gives stakeholders confidence that sequencing is principled, not arbitrary. In a time box, WSJF helps identify which items should be tackled first, ensuring the limited window is filled with the most efficient delivery of value relative to effort. Thin slice strategy embodies the art of breaking down work into the smallest viable increments that still prove utility or reduce uncertainty. Instead of building large batches that hide defects and delay learning, teams focus on vertical slices that demonstrate value end to end. For example, delivering a basic login feature with one authentication option is more valuable within a time box than partially completing an elaborate multi-factor design. Thin slices allow stakeholders to validate usefulness, uncover issues, and make informed choices earlier. They also reduce risk by exposing integration points quickly. In time-constrained cycles, thin slices ensure each increment delivers something tangible, even if not complete in breadth. Over time, stacking thin slices produces robust solutions while continuously delivering feedback and progress. This strategy maximizes learning per unit of time and avoids the trap of unfinished, invisible work. Acceptance criteria linked directly to outcomes sharpen the definition of done. Rather than vague completion markers, criteria describe observable behavior and success thresholds tied to value. For example, instead of feature implemented, the criterion might be users can complete checkout in under 2 minutes with no errors in 95% of sessions. This transforms acceptance from activity into impact. Clear, outcome-based criteria reduce debate about whether work is truly complete and provide evidence of value delivered. In time-boxed environments, such precision is essential because it prevents half-finished or low-quality increments from slipping through under pressure. Done must mean that outcomes are met, not just that code was written. Linking acceptance to outcomes protects integrity and ensures that time-box delivery reflects actual benefit, not just activity checked off a list. Non-functional value recognition prevents teams from overlooking critical enablers of trust and sustainability. Performance improvements, security enhancements, accessibility upgrades, and operability features often lack immediate user-facing glamour but deliver immense value. For instance, reducing system latency may not produce new features, but it improves user satisfaction and reduces churn. Similarly, strengthening security may avert catastrophic breaches. Timeboxes must account for these forms of value, treating them as integral, not optional. Ignoring them creates hidden liabilities that undermine future outcomes. Recognizing non-functional value elevates quality and resilience alongside features. In practice, timebox planning must balance visible feature delivery with invisible system health, ensuring that value is holistic. A strong culture includes these investments deliberately, preventing them from being sacrificed to short-term feature counts. Risk-first sequencing emphasizes collapsing uncertainty early in the time box. Items that test risky assumptions or reduce ambiguity should be prioritized to prevent expensive surprises later. For example, running a spike to validate whether a vendor API can handle projected load reduces the risk of discovering incompatibility at the end of development. Risk-first sequencing ensures the riskiest work is not postponed but addressed when there is still time to adapt. This approach balances immediate delivery with long-term reliability, ensuring value is sustainable. Without risk-first sequencing, teams may appear productive in the short term but encounter devastating rework when untested assumptions collapse. In time-constrained cycles, addressing risks early buys flexibility, keeping future options open, and preventing late failures that erode trust in outcomes. Capacity realism anchors commitments to empirical throughput rather than optimistic projection. Teams that commit based on wishful thinking often create thrash, spillover, and burnout. By using past velocity and observed variability as guides, commitments remain credible. For example, if a team typically completes 5 stories per sprint, planning for 10 is a recipe for disappointment. Realism protects focus by setting expectations stakeholders can trust. It also preserves morale, because teams meet commitments consistently, rather than failing under unrealistic loads. In timeboxes, Capacity realism ensures value is concentrated on achievable outcomes, rather than wasted in overcommitment. On the exam, scenarios often test whether candidates can recognize the dangers of optimism bias. The agile response usually emphasizes discipline. Sustainable delivery depends on honesty about capacity. Negotiated scope under fixed time acknowledges that dates are often immovable, but features can flex. By ranking options and making trade-offs explicit, teams preserve value under constraint. For example, if a release date is fixed by regulatory requirement, the team may commit to essential compliance features first, with lower priority items dropped if time runs short. This preserves integrity while delivering what matters most. Negotiated scope prevents the trap of cutting quality or overworking teams to meet fixed commitments. Instead, it embraces transparency. Some features may not fit, and that is a deliberate choice, not a failure. This discipline maintains trust with stakeholders by showing that time is respected while still maximizing value within it. Visualizing options and trade-offs in outcome terms helps stakeholders make informed decisions rather than relying on politics or intuition. For example, presenting options as delivering feature A will reduce support calls by 20%, while feature B will improve onboarding speed by 15%, frames decisions in measurable impact. Visualization tools like trade-off matrices or outcome maps clarify which option delivers the highest benefit under constraints. Without visualization, decisions default to the loudest stakeholder or the most familiar idea. By anchoring in outcomes, teams elevate the conversation above politics and into evidence. This transparency builds confidence that time boxes are filled with the most effective work. It also fosters alignment, because stakeholders see trade-offs in shared terms, not in competing agendas. Definition of done integrity protects value delivery by ensuring quality gates and evidence are met inside the time box. Cutting corners under pressure may create the illusion of speed, but leads to costly rework later. For example, skipping regression testing to meet a date may produce a release that looks complete, but fails in production, eroding trust. Maintaining integrity ensures increments are not only finished, but releasable and reliable. In time boxes, this discipline prevents fake velocity, where progress is claimed but outcomes degrade. Done must mean usable and valuable now, not coded but untested. Protecting integrity requires courage under constraint, but it pays off in reliability and stakeholder confidence. A culture that safeguards done ensures that each time box produces real, bankable progress. Technical debt economics frame short-term trade-offs against long-term drag. Sometimes incurring debt is a conscious choice to deliver urgent value quickly, but repayment must be planned. For example, hard-coding a configuration may allow a release within a time box, but a follow-up backlog item must address flexibility to prevent future costs. Ignoring debt creates drag, slowing velocity across future cycles and reducing capacity for value. Including prudent repayment in timebox planning keeps delivery sustainable. On the exam, scenarios often test whether candidates can recognize when debt is tolerable versus when it threatens system health. The agile response usually emphasizes balance. Timeboxes must maximize immediate value while protecting the ability to deliver value in future cycles. Managing debt consciously prevents the erosion of trust and speed. Anti-patterns emerge when timebox focus is corrupted. Scope stuffing overloads cycles, guaranteeing spillover. Last-minute quality cuts undermine integrity, creating fragile outcomes. Vanity metrics celebrate completed tasks without verifying outcomes, rewarding activity over value. For example, a team might claim success for shipping 10 stories but ignore that none improved user satisfaction. Anti-pattern awareness allows teams to call out these behaviors quickly and correct them. Without vigilance, time boxes devolve into hollow rituals where appearances replace impact. On the exam, anti-pattern scenarios often test whether candidates can spot when delivery practices undermine value. The agile response usually emphasizes discipline. Value per time box comes not from volume, but from integrity and outcome focus. Avoiding anti-patterns ensures time boxes deliver on their purpose-constrained, high-value progress. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Planning inside a time box requires clarity of purpose and disciplined selection. Each cycle should begin with a clear goal, a ranked backlog, and explicit if time remains options. This structure protects the core outcome from being diluted by scope creep. For example, a sprint might establish the goal of reducing user onboarding time, with the top backlog items directly tied to this outcome. Lower-ranked items are held as optional if capacity allows. This approach sets expectations with stakeholders while giving teams focus. Without such discipline, planning becomes a wish list, and the time box risks collapsing under competing priorities. Effective planning makes the time box a container for deliberate bets, where success is measured by outcome attainment rather than volume of activity. By starting with clarity, teams maximize the chances that what emerges from the cycle delivers real, verifiable value. Daily focus and flow control sustain momentum inside the time box. Practices such as limiting work in process, setting age alerts for lingering items, and swarming to complete critical slices keep energy concentrated. For example, if an item has been stuck in testing for several days, the team may swarm around it to unblock progress rather than starting new work. These controls prevent the diffusion of effort that leads to unfinished tasks and wasted cycles. In a constrained window, half-finished work provides no value. Only completed increments move the needle. Flow discipline ensures that value slices are finished early and reliably. Without such practices, teams often end a cycle with scattered, incomplete work that undermines predictability. Concentrating energy on finishing valuable slices first ensures the time box closes with tangible, usable results. Review and acceptance practices anchor end-of-cycle conversations on outcomes rather than activity. Review should compare increments against planned objectives, acceptance criteria, and evidence of benefit. For example, instead of reporting 3 features built, the team might present, quote, checkout completion time reduced by 20%, as measured during user testing. This reframes progress in outcome terms, sparking dialogue about fit, gaps, and next bets. Acceptance conversations that remain tethered to criteria prevent debates about whether work is done in subjective terms. They also ensure stakeholders see real impact rather than raw output. Without this discipline, reviews risk becoming theater, where velocity is praised without scrutiny of value. Anchoring reviews in evidence maintains transparency and guides smarter sequencing for the next cycle. Metrics that matter within time boxes reinforce outcome orientation. Useful measures include attainment of planned outcomes, distribution of cycle times, and escaped defects. These metrics reveal whether value is being delivered predictably and with quality. For example, tracking outcome attainment shows whether the cycle achieved its stated goal, while escaped defect rates highlight whether quality shortcuts undermined value. By contrast, volume-only measures, such as number of tasks completed, create vanity impressions that mask real performance. Metrics that matter shift the conversation from busyness to impact. Without them, teams risk celebrating activity that does not move the needle. In practice, effective metrics allow time boxes to be compared and improved, feeding organizational learning. They keep focus sharp by constantly asking, did this window produce value, and how do we know? Experimentation inside the time box makes uncertainty a source of learning rather than paralysis. Safe-to-fail probes, pilot tests, or hypothesis-driven slices can be run quickly within the cycle to validate assumptions. For example, a team might release a simplified version of a feature to a small user group, observing whether it drives engagement. The results then inform whether to expand, adjust, or abandon the idea. By treating the time box as a laboratory, teams avoid overcommitting to untested assumptions. This practice reduces risk while increasing confidence in next steps. Without experimentation, cycles risk delivering polished but misaligned features. Embedding small experiments ensures that each time box is not only a delivery mechanism but also a discovery engine. In this way, every window produces both value and insight, fueling adaptation. Release readiness is essential to ensure that what leaves a time box is not only functional but also reliable, reversible, and observable in production. This means validating operability, confirming monitoring coverage, and ensuring rollback paths are tested. For example, before releasing a new payment module, the team ensures real-time monitoring is in place and a rollback script is available in case of failure. This protects both users and business from fragile releases. Without readiness checks, increments may meet development criteria but fail operationally, undermining trust. Incorporating readiness into the time box preserves credibility by ensuring outcomes are bankable. Value cannot be maximized if delivery compromises reliability. Time boxes must end not with unfinished promises, but with increments that can be deployed, observed, and supported with confidence. Stakeholder trade-off forums provide quick mechanisms to adjust scope when reality shifts. When unexpected issues consume capacity, forums allow stakeholders to decide which lower-ranked items fall off, rather than diluting quality across everything. For example, if testing uncovers more complexity than expected, stakeholders may choose to drop a minor feature to protect the main outcome. These forums prevent reactive cuts made by the team in isolation and preserve transparency. Without them, teams risk disappointing stakeholders by quietly reducing scope or compromising quality. Trade-off forums reinforce partnership. Stakeholders share responsibility for decisions when constraints bite. This sustains trust and ensures that value is preserved under changing conditions, even within tight time boxes. Handling spillover requires discernment between unfinished low-value items and essential refinements. Instead of automatically carrying everything forward, teams should reprioritize, asking whether incomplete items still warrant investment. For example, if a minor feature was left unfinished, it may be dropped in favor of higher-value backlog items. Essential refinements, such as fixing defects in delivered increments, may carry forward with urgency. This distinction prevents backlogs from becoming cluttered with low-value leftovers. Without such discipline, teams accumulate waste by dragging forward work that no longer matters. Inclusion of spillover must be intentional, guided by value, not inertia. By reassessing unfinished work in outcome terms, teams preserve focus and prevent the accumulation of half-finished baggage across cycles. Retrospective value checks close the loop by asking whether the time box actually moved the needle. Teams examine outcome attainment, stakeholder satisfaction, and unexpected effects. For example, a retrospective might reveal that while features were delivered, customer complaints did not decrease, signaling misaligned scope. These insights inform slicing and sequencing heuristics for future cycles. Retrospectives shift reflection from process efficiency alone to whether outcomes were achieved. Without this value check, teams risk repeating cycles that feel productive but fail to deliver meaningful benefit. Retrospectives rooted in outcomes transform time boxes into continuous improvement engines. They refine not only how work is done but also how value is defined, measured, and pursued under constraint. Portfolio linkage ensures that local time box outcomes connect to broader program goals. Individual increments must roll up to strategy so that distributed teams contribute to a coherent whole. For example, a sprint goal of reducing login errors contributes to a program objective of increasing user retention. Without linkage, local optimizations may fragment effort, producing outputs that fail to align with organizational direction. Portfolio-level visibility demonstrates how each cycle contributes to strategic progress. This alignment also guides prioritization, ensuring resources are concentrated where they serve the mission. Linking time boxes to portfolios elevates accountability. Outcomes are not just local wins but building blocks of system-wide value. This coherence prevents wasted effort and strengthens trust in agile delivery as a strategic enabler. Compliance-aligned evidence ensures that documentation and traceability requirements are captured inside the time box rather than postponed. For example, tests, approvals, and security checks should be recorded as part of the definition of done, making increments both releasable and auditable. Without this integration, organizations face documentation spikes at release, delaying delivery, and creating compliance risk. By embedding evidence generation, teams satisfy regulators and auditors while sustaining agility. Inclusion of compliance is not an external burden, but an integral part of value. Trustworthy delivery requires both adaptability and accountability, and compliance-aligned practices ensure neither is sacrificed. This approach prevents the false dichotomy between speed and rigor, showing that value is maximized when agility coexists with compliance discipline. Risk review before closing the time box ensures new exposures and unresolved assumptions are not carried forward blindly. Teams pause to confirm what risks were discovered, what remains uncertain, and what contingencies are needed for the next cycle. For example, a review may note that a dependency on a vendor API remains untested, requiring attention in the next sprint. Without such reflection, risks accumulate unnoticed, eventually surfacing as costly failures. Risk review transforms the close of each time box into a checkpoint not just of outcomes, but of resilience. It balances optimism with realism, ensuring that progress is celebrated while vigilance remains. By linking value and risk, time boxes deliver not only immediate benefit but also preparedness for the future. Communicating value delivered at the end of a time box reinforces outcome language across stakeholders. A concise story that explains the goal, the slice shipped, and the evidence of benefit makes progress tangible. For example, a summary might state, Goal: improve onboarding. Delivered: simplified sign-up flow. Evidence: completion time reduced by 30% in testing. Such communication builds stakeholder confidence and strengthens alignment. Without this discipline, stakeholders may equate progress with activity, missing the real impact. Storytelling ensures that value is not only delivered, but also recognized and understood. This closes the loop between planning, execution, and accountability. In practice, clear communication creates a culture where outcomes are celebrated and informed dialogue shapes the next cycle. Sustainable pace guardrails protect the long-term ability to maximize value across time boxes. While teams can sprint hard for one cycle, pushing too hard erodes quality, morale, and reliability over time. Guardrails remind teams to balance speed with sustainability. For example, limiting overtime, tracking team energy, and preserving quality practices ensure each cycle contributes positively without burnout. Sustainable pace is not a luxury, it is the foundation for consistent delivery of value. Without it, short bursts of output are followed by fatigue and rework, eroding trust. By protecting the rhythm of delivery, sustainable pace ensures that value per time box remains high across many cycles, not just one. This guardrail transforms agility into a durable capability rather than a short-term push. In conclusion, maximizing value within time boxes requires discipline, clarity, and outcome orientation. Planning must focus on prioritized goals, thin slices, and realism about capacity. Flow controls, stakeholder trade-off forums, and readiness checks protect focus and quality. Reviews, retrospectives, and portfolio linkage ensure that each time box produces measurable benefit and contributes to broader goals. Metrics, compliance evidence, and risk reviews preserve transparency and accountability. Sustainable pace safeguards the system so that value remains consistent across cycles. On the exam, candidates will be tested on whether they can identify practices that keep time boxes anchored to value rather than volume. In practice, value focus transforms constraint into creativity, making each window of time a disciplined opportunity to deliver what matters most. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.